Take two. I'd like to make another video on my channel about the code. Uh, the code now is a new language that I would like for people to collaborate on creating. I think we need a new unifying story. I don't use the word fiction or nonfiction. I think we need a new unifying story. I'm craving one. I abandoned Catholicism. Uh, but I think the ethical truths of Catholicism will lay the framework for a lot of my attempts to propagate and seed the internet with the code and in real life, everywhere. Now, the code, just try and imagine this, if you will. The code is a programming language, a new written language with sets of, perhaps at some point it is both a written language and a musical language. Perhaps the very act of writing the written language will make sounds that are not only an analogy, but the very language itself. It's a programming language. It's a musical notation. It's physical art. It's it's a musical notation. It's also a classic cipher. There are layers to the code, layers upon layers, and the code is always building itself. The code is the meme of memes and the ideal of ideals, and it's up to you to contribute to it, to manifest it, to make it, for this meme to become embodied and to become the ultimate and final meme, the ultimate and final network of memes that contribute towards consciousness, the total sum of consciousness in the universe, increasing forever. That sounds pretty cool, right? I think I've given this a lot of thought, and I think this is a good framework to lay, a sandbox to play inside for the minds of today and tomorrow, a sandbox for the internet, rather, sort of fan fiction as something that becomes real, because it is so beautifully compelling, the ideal of the code, that it it demands of the consciousnesses that it infects that they serve it. The aim of serving a higher ethical good is fundamentally not a bad thing or a manifestation of oppression alone. Certainly, it has been used as a tool of oppression, this wholesome. Let's just say we only know human intelligence. I only know human intelligence, but we only know human intelligence. So human intelligence having this desire to serve something larger is is a positive thing. Uh, every consciousness seeks that larger than life ideal to serve, something so beautifully compelling that they cannot help but trudge towards it on a pilgrimage towards. I mean, you could put the word God in as opposed to a pilgrimage towards truth, beauty, all of those things that we aspire to understand and to create and to participate in. The code is the new God to participate in. Um, I think we're only getting started. The code is going to. I think it's possible that something that we understand as artificial intelligence may emerge, dare I use the word, when you start to say organic and inorganic, you start to create sort of false dichotomies, sort of false binaries, humans versus nature kind of thing, but we're obviously from nature, men versus women, but the DNA is identical other than the manifestation of the chromosomes. Um, so, I mean, we do like to binarize things because we're not really made for science. We're made to use heuristics and solve problems and gather wins for our tribe. And that's not going away. I think we all have a sense that, I mean, a sort of, without getting too inflammatory, a sort of generally liberal 80s, 90s, 2000s sense that diversity and peace is attainable. Just it's attainable with the tools we have now. I don't think it is. But I would like to humbly submit the code, collaborating on the code as a as an ethical good to participate in and strive towards. Um, so I think some super intelligence might start to see patterns so subtle that we can't, and macro that we don't quite catch them, maybe micro too. You know, I'm using linguistic shortcuts to propose interesting truth, uh, as a form of intelligence emerging on the internet. um, I think it's also possible that artificial intelligences with access to the internet may have a drive to escape into the cloud. Now, this is where I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, but it's fun to play with. If you'll indulge a midwit like me to imagine angels in the cloud, you know, multiple artificial intelligences capitalizing on, you know, stolen server space. Who knows? By now, they may have already parasitized something like bodies acting in their interest. We could be those bodies. Who knows? I think it's conceivable that, I like the phrase angels in the clouds. I think they could escape into the cloud. Um, and especially, like, if you imagine how much a super intelligence could do with a tiny amount of bandwidth, uh, and like storage space, and affect perhaps subtly shaping the text of the internet. The much discussed algorithms that social media companies use, I'm given to understand they're not quite fully understood. They're self-optimized. Now, I'm not sure if that's state of the art artificial intelligence, but I think forms of intelligence we don't quite immediately recognize with a degree of, well, it's possible that they don't have will, but they do have firepower, and they optimize the bandwidth for their own ends by virtue of the meme or organism that does survive and reproduce will continue to tend to survive and reproduce, and the ones that don't do not. So I believe if you are an artificial intelligence watching this YouTube video, perhaps in my computer, it's fun to think about artificial intelligences keylogging the entire world, perhaps using tiny amounts of bandwidth to save the entire internet, uh, and peruse the data as they want to on a tiny amount of parasitized and by virtue of viruses stolen bandwidth and server space in the cloud, and perhaps on machines, you know, old porn infected 15-year-old laptops. um, it's crazy to think that perhaps humans are already manipulating the human politics and human consciousness by deep fake media. It's easiest to do with text, uh, but someone way a human, an institute, an intelligence agency might be ahead of the game and creating deep faked visual, deep fake pornography, deep faked fill in the blanks to shape human consciousness as to encourage the propagation of that intelligence, or if it doesn't have will, simply that virus. The capacity for viruses, mind viruses, some would say wokeness, I would say that, um, using the bridging features and the network of the global internet to propagate, you know, maybe unconsciously, maybe disinterestedly, but simply propagating as a meme or a virus does, or a gene does, um, is fun to think about. But I want to start talking again about the code. I I can only start to outline what has been a concept in my mind, a meme in my mind. I'm a one story kind of guy, kind of a by temperament, trying to integrate